revealed so many sacred secrets of humanity, of the world. So now let us look at one of the sacred revelations made by Devi Parashakti about the sacred secret of the birth. First, let us listen to Devi Parashakti's revelation on the 31st of May 2021.
Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Nithyananda.
நன்றாய் கேட்டுக்கொள். உன் கேள்விக்கு உன்மூலமாய் உலகெங்கும் இருக்கும் இந்துக்கள் எல்லோர்க்கும் அளிக்கின்றேன் உத்திரம். கேட்டு வாழ்ந்தால் உங்கள் வாழ்க்கை பத்திரம். நன்றாய் கேளுங்கள். பிறப்பின் ரகசியத்தை பிறப்பிலா பெருமை உடைய பரமேஸ்வரி சொல்லுகின்றேன் கேளுங்கள். அண்டஜம், யோனிஜம், ஜலஜம், பீஜம் எனும் 4 விதமான பிறவிகளில் 84,000 யோனிகளில் பிறக்கும் பிறப்புகளிலேயே பெருமை வாய்ந்ததும் உத்தமமானதும் மனிதப் பிறவி. அந்த மனிதப் பிறவியிலும் பலமுறை பிறந்து உழன்று அரசியல், பொருளாதாரம், சுகபோகம், தர்மம், அர்த்தம், காமம் எனும் ஆசைகள், துக்கங்கள், அச்சங்கள் அனைத்திலும் அழன்று உழன்று இனி வேண்டாம் இப்பிறவி, வேண்டுவது மோட்சமே என்று முடிவெடுத்தோர்க்கு மட்டுமே ஹிந்து மத யோனிஜம், ஹிந்து பெற்றோர்க்கு பிறந்திடும் சனாதன ஹிந்து தர்ம யோனிஜம், மனித பிறவி உத்தமம், சனாதன ஹிந்து தர்ம மனித பிறவி உத்தமோத்தமம். இந்த உத்தமோத்தம பிறவி எடுத்த எல்லோருக்கும் ஜீவன் முக்த விஞ்ஞானத்தையும் சனாதன தர்மத்தையும் காக்கின்ற கடமையும் உண்டு. அதனால் வருகின்ற நன்மையெல்லாம் அனுபவிக்கும் உரிமையும் உண்டு. இந்த கடமையை செய்வோம் என்று சத்தியம் செய்ததனால்தான் அந்த உரிமை அளிக்கப்பட்டது. பூமிக்கு வந்தபின் மனம் மயங்கி மதிமயங்கி சனாதன தர்மம் காக்க மறந்ததனால் மாயை அவர்கள் உயிரை பறிக்கின்றாள். நன்றாய் புரிந்து கொள்ளுங்கள். உயிரை கொடுத்தாலும் தர்மத்தை காப்போம் என்று உறுதி எடுத்தவர்க்கே சனாதன இந்து தர்ம யோனிஜம் அளிக்கின்றேன் யான். உடல் பெற்ற பிறகு ஊழி பெருவலியால் ஆசையச்சங்களை உதறவிடாது, உதறியும் விடாது சனாதன ஹிந்து தர்மம் காக்க மறந்தோரை உயிர் வாழத் தகுதியில்லாதவர் பட்டியலில் உடனடியாய் மாயை சேர்க்கின்றாள். அதனால் ராட்சசர்களும் அசுரர்களும் தானாகவே இவர்கள் உயிரை எடுக்கின்றார். நன்றாய் புரிந்து கொள்ளுங்கள். உயிரை கொடுத்தாலும் தர்மம் காப்போம் என்று நிற்பவர்க்கு நிலைத்திடும் வீரஸ்வர்க்கமும் கைலாச பதவியும். எக்காரணம் கொண்டும் தர்மம் காக்க மறந்த உத்தமோத்தம ஜனனமான சனாதன ஹிந்து ஜனனம் பெற்ற மக்களுக்கு இல்லை வேறு கதி. சனாதன ஹிந்து தர்ம மனித ஜனனம் உத்தமோத்தம மனித ஜனனம். உங்கள் உரிமை உலகில் அதிகம். உங்களுக்கு கடமையும் உலகில் பெரிது. தர்மம் காத்தாலே கடமை. தர்மம் காக்காதார்க்கு உயிர் வாழும் உரிமை இல்லை. நன்றாய் புரிந்து கொள்ளுங்கள். உத்தமோத்தம பிறவியான சனாதன ஹிந்து தர்ம பிறவி எடுத்த எல்லோரும் புரிந்து கொள்ளுங்கள். உங்கள் வாழ்வின் முதற்கடமை தர்மம் காத்தல். தர்மம் காக்க தர்மம் உங்களை காக்கும். சனாதன ஹிந்து தர்மம் காக்க மறந்திட்டால் வாழும் உரிமையை நீங்கள் இழந்து விடுகின்றீர்கள். அதற்கு மேல் வாழ்ந்தென்ன அழிந்தென்ன? பூமிக்கு பாரம் குறையட்டும் என்று அசுரர்களும் ராட்சதர்களும் உங்களை உண்டு தீர்க்கின்றார்கள். அதையும் மாயை கண்டு சும்மாவிருப்பாள். பிரபஞ்ச ரகசியத்தை, பிறவியின் ரகசியத்தை உலகிற்கெல்லாம் உத்தரமாய்ச் சொல்லிவிட்டேன். புரிந்து வாழ்வில் நடந்து உயிரை பத்திரமாய் பார்த்துக் கொள்ளுங்கள். அன்னை சொல்லும் அருள் சத்தியம் இது. ஓம் ஓம் ஓம்.
Yes. Yes. So now that we've heard Devi Parashakti's revelations, let us understand these revelations mapped into English. Of course, Devi's words are too profound, too sacred to be translated purely into English, but let us understand the basic meaning of Devi Parashakti's revelations. Yes, so Devi revealed, listen, listen, Andajam, Yonijam, Jalajam, Bijam, like this in yes, like this in 4 types of births, in 84 lakh yonis. In all these births, the most greatest birth of them all is the human birth. Even in that human birth, being born and toiled many times after getting burnt and toiled in politics and finance, in luxuries, in dharma, artha, kama. And those who decide of not wanting this birth, wanting only moksha, only those will have the Hindu dharma yonijam, the Sanatana Hindu dharma yonijam of being born to Hindu parents. Human birth is uttamam, the best. And Sanatana Hindu Dharma human birth is Uttamottamam, the best of the best. Everyone who took this Uttamottama birth has the responsibility of protecting the science of living enlightenment and Sanatana Dharma. And also they have the right of experiencing its benefits. This right was given to them because of their commitment given by them to do this responsibility. And after coming to Bhuloka, by getting mentally deluded and forgetting the dharma of protecting Sanatana Dharma, Maya, she is taking away all their souls. Understand carefully. I'm giving the Sanatana Hindu Dharma Yonijam only for those who gave the commitment of protecting Sanatana Dharma, even by giving their life. After getting the body, because of painful deluge, not dropping fear and greed, for those who forgot to protect Sanatana Hindu Dharma, Maya, she will immediately add them all to the list of those who are not worthy of living. After getting, therefore, Rakshasas and Asuras are automatically taking away their life. Understand properly. For those who stand that even by giving their life, they will protect Dharma, will permanently have Virasvaraga and Kailasa Padavi. For any reason, people who forgot to protect Dharma, having the Uttamottama birth of Sanatana Hindu birth, there is no other way for them. Sanatana Hindu Dharma human birth is Uttamottama human birth. Your rights in this world are immense. Also, your responsibility in this world is large. Protecting Dharma is responsibility. Those who do not protect Dharma, they do not have the right to live. Understand properly. All those who took the Uttamottama birth, which is Sanatana Hindu Dharma human birth, all of you understand. The first responsibility of your life is protecting Dharma. If you protect Dharma, Dharma will protect you. If you forget to protect Sanatana Hindu Dharma, you lose the right of living. After that, what bothers whether you live or get destroyed? Asuras and Rakshasas will eat you, so that the burden on earth is reduced. Seeing that, Maya, she will keep quiet. So now let us understand what exactly Devi has described here. What is the responsibility of Hindus? How can we protect Hinduism? And why we need a Hindu nation to fulfill this responsibility, to protect Hinduism, to fulfill the commitment that we have given when we were given the Uttamottama birth of Sanatana Hindu birth. So first, let us understand Hinduism represents the world's most ancient yet progressive indigenous spiritual tradition. It is an open framework model of civilization that stands for global peace, vegetarianism, nonviolence, yoga, the worship of nature, temple-based living, manifesting spiritual powers, and the inherent divinity of every being. And the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has most recently revealed that there were 48 ancient indigenous spiritual traditions that existed, civilizations that once existed. And of all of those 48, only Hinduism, the Sanatana Hinduism, is the only ancient civilization that is still existing today. These Hindu nations were ecosystems where more and more enlightened beings could be produced, so that enlightened civilization could be kept alive and its great gifts shared with the world. So now we've heard many references from our Hindu nations, from our Hindu scriptures, and there are thousands of these references. So let us look at some of the most famous references that you probably have also heard of. First, let us look at the Rama Rajya, the Hindu nation that was ruled by Bhagavan Sri Rama himself. And this was described in the Valmiki Ramayana. There were no widows to lament. There was nor any danger from wild animals, nor any fear born of diseases. The world was bereft of thieves and robberies. No one felt worthless, nor did old people perform obsequies concerning youngsters. Every creature felt pleased. Everyone was intent on virtue, turning their eyes towards Rama alone. Creatures did not kill one another. And it continues on. People survived for thousands of years with thousands of their progeny, all free of illness and grief. The trees were bearing flowers and fruits regularly without any injury by pests and insects. The clouds were raining in time, and the wind was delightful to the touch. Every caste was performing their own duties, satisfied with their own work and bereft of any greed. People were intent on virtue and lived without telling lies. All people were endowed with excellent characteristics. All were engaged in virtue. So you can see how prosperous this kingdom was, the kingdom ruled by Bhagavan Sri Rama himself. Now let us look at another famous Hindu kingdom, the Hastinapur kingdom, ruled by Yudhishthira. And it was described in the Srimad Mahabharata. Devas granted rains to fulfill all wants. The world became free of all diseases. There was no hunger or thirst anywhere. There was no mental suffering. Those without livelihood were given livelihood. There was abundance all around. There was no worldly worries left for anyone, and there was no cause for fear either. Happiness on earth was in fact even greater than in the heavens. So you can see the standards by which the Hindu kingdoms were even measuring the success, that people were living free of all diseases, that people didn't experience suffering. Everyone was satisfied with their own work, and no one felt greed. There was abundance all around. There was livelihood for everyone, and happiness was greater than in the heavens. You can see all of these descriptions, whether it was in the Ramarajya or the Hastinapur kingdom, was completely different standard than what we consider as a success of a nation today. Whether it's now we consider the GDP of the nation to consider the success of a nation. However, you can see the standards itself were completely different. We're much more evolved when the Hindu kingdoms were existing. And Hindu kingdoms, Hindu nations had so much to contribute in every single field, whether it was the field of enlightenment, health, medicine, art, science, technology, aviation, dance and music, clothes and jewelry, social systems, judicial systems, political systems, legal systems. In every field, Hindu kingdoms gave breakthroughs. This is why everyone felt satisfied with their own work, and because every field, every dimension had breakthroughs, had something to offer, had something to contribute to the world. So now let us understand how our Hindu kingdoms were destroyed. Over the course of 1,000 years, our Hindu nations, our Hindu kingdoms faced various attacks, various invasions, which left all of our Hindu kingdoms destroyed. When we once had 56 nations, now we don't even have a single nation that is Hindu except for Kailasa. So now let us understand the three-phase destruction of the Hindu civilization. The first phase came with the Islamic invasions. This was between 800 and 1700 AD. This was the physical destruction of the Hindu civilization. And Will Durant, a celebrated historian who studied India and Hinduism, the Hindu history, has described that the Mohammedan conquest of India is probably the bloodiest story in history. The Islamic historians and scholars have recorded with great glee and pride the slaughters of Hindus, forced conversions and abduction of Hindu women and children to slave markets, and the destruction of Hindu temples carried out by the warriors of Islam during 800 to 1700 AD. Millions of Hindus were converted to Islam by sword during this period, and millions more were raped, murdered, and dismembered. You can see how barbaric these Islamic invasions were. And just to give another example of how the Hindus were treated during the Islamic rule, in one law prescribed for Hindus as conveyed by Khilji, it was described that Hindus are like mud. If silver is demanded from them, they must with greatest humility offer gold. If a Mohammedan desires to spit into a Hindu's mouth, the Hindu should open it wide for that purpose. God created the Hindus to be slaves for the Mohammedans. The Prophet hath ordained that if Hindus do not accept Islam, that they should be imprisoned, tortured, and finally put to death, and their property confiscated. To keep Hindus in abasement is especially a religious duty, because they are the most inveterate enemies of the Prophet. And here you can just see one more example of how the Hindu women were treated. In this photo, you can see that how the Hindu women were actually forced to wear garlands of decapitated heads of children. And this was one of the punishments that Hindus faced just simply for being Hindu. Many ways the Hindus were tortured by the Islamic invaders, and this was one of the most barbaric, destructive invasions during the Hindu civilization. And over the course of the Islamic invasions, over 200 million Hindus were slaughtered by the Muslim invaders. 100,000 Hindu temples were destroyed, and over 1 million deities and sculptures were destroyed. And Kanhada Prabanda has described that the conquering armies burned villages, devastated the land, plundered people's wealth, took Brahmins and children and women of all classes captive, flogged them with thongs of rawhide, carried a moving prison with them, and converted the prisoners into obsequious Turks. Now, let us look at the next phase of the destruction of our Hindu civilization. This came with the British occupation between 1700 and 1947 AD. This was the economic and psychological destruction of the Hindu civilization. So despite the British not using brute force tactics, the way that the Islamic invaders did, the British invasion, the British occupation was equally destructive. And despite its being a little bit more subversive, was equally brutal, was equally harmful to the Hindu civilization. And Will Durant has described, again, the famous historian who has studied India and the conquest of India, it's described that I have seen a great people starving to death before my eyes, and I am convinced that this exhaustion and starvation are due not, as their beneficiaries claim, to overpopulation and superstition, but to the most sordid and criminal exploitation of one nation by another in all recorded history. And you can see just one photo, one example of how the British treated the Hindu population, literally enforcing artificial famines upon them, starving them to death. Extremely inhumane, extremely brutal, despite it being subversive and unknown to the commoner, unknown to the public, unknown to the world, how the Hindus were treated under the British occupation. This was the tactics the British used to subjugate the Hindu population. Yes, we'll see what else how the British empire used all possible means to destroy the Hindu civil and cultural institutions in order to delegitimize and demoralize the indigenous people of India so that they would become slaves in their own homeland. This included discriminatory laws to instill feelings of racial inferiority, engineering artificial famines to starve the natives into submission. You saw in the earlier photograph how badly the Hindu population was starved during this period. And multiple famines the British had induced, artificial famines had induced in order to starve the native population. They also annexed new kingdoms to undermine the native rule. So during this time, it should be noted that there were still many Hindu kingdoms that still existed. However, the British strategically attacked these Hindu kingdoms, annexed them, and undermined the indigenous rulers at that time. They also mistranslated the Hindu scriptures to instill anti-Hindu narratives. And unfortunately, these mistranslated Hindu scriptures are still in common use today. They're still used to discriminate against Hindus and to show Hindus as backwards and oppressive, Hinduism as backwards and oppressive. They also destroyed the indigenous Gurukul education system, which was, of course, the very backbone of the Hindu civilization, and was how our Hindu civilization was so successful. They strategically attacked and destroyed the traditional indigenous Gurukul education system. And they also destroyed the local industries and forced importation of British goods. So again, so that Hindus were completely dependent upon the British for their own livelihood. They also banned Indians from owning or producing their own firearms so that they could not defend themselves against the British. So now let us look at each of these tactics a little bit more. So using theories of scientific racism and social Darwinism, the British justified their conquest and oppression of dark-skinned people as a humanitarian civilizing mission, even though it was mere cover for racial oppression and economic exploitation. So this was not just a tactic used in India, but across many communities, many indigenous communities. The British used the justification that they were bringing civilization, that they were bringing progress as the white saviors to the indigenous population, to the indigenous people. And this was exactly the tactic that they used in India, that the Hindus were somehow inferior to the British. So that's why they had to civilize them, to domesticate them, and bring progress to the Hindu community. And Charles Kingsley, a celebrated professor and historian and friend of Charles Darwin and the priest in the Church of England, has described, do you not see then that by following these studies, you are walking in the very path to which England owes her wealth, the glorious work which God seems to have laid on English race to replenish the earth and subdue it. So literally, they felt it was their birthright to replenish the earth and to subdue it, which was exactly what they did to the Hindu civilization. And they, over 200 years of intense racial hatred towards Hindus led to colonial subjugation. And James Mill, a celebrated author of the seminal work, The History of British India, and one of the intellectual leaders of the East India Company, and he described that the Hindus are full of dissimulation and falsehood, the universal concomitants of oppression, the vices of falsehood. Indeed, they carry a height almost unexampled among the races of men. As for religion, no people have ever drawn a more gross and disgusting picture of the universe than what is presented in the writings of the Hindus. Very few words are required regarding Islam, because the superiority of the Mohammedans in respect of religion is beyond all dispute. In truth, the Hindu, like the eunuch, excels in the qualities of a slave. The Mohammedans in are more manly. So you can see that literally the British described the Hindus as slaves, that they were fit only to be slaves. And you can see in this description also how they described the understanding of the cosmos, the Hindu understanding of the cosmos and cosmology as gross and disgusting. However, as modern science progresses more and more, it's very clearly understood that the Hindu understanding of cosmology, of the cosmos, is much more accurate than what any other civilization has understood. And the British also used the strategy of divide and rule in order to subjugate the colonial population. So Sashi Tharoor of the Indian Parliament has described that the British had been horrified during the revolt of 1857 to see Hindus and Muslims fighting side by side under each other's command against the foreign oppressors. They vowed that this would not happen again. Divide et impera. Divide and rule was an old Roman maxim, and it shall be ours, wrote Lord Elphinstone. A systematic policy of fomenting separate consciousness among the two communities was launched with overt British sponsorship. So this was one of the many tactics used by the British in order to, again, continue their colonial subjugation. And as we learned earlier, the British used various tactics in order to destabilize the community, to subjugate the community. And one of the most brutal, most inhumane was to engineer artificial famines to break the very spirit of the people. And Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of UK during the British rule, part of the British rule in India, has described, I hate Indians. They are a beastly people with a beastly religion. The famine was their own fault for breeding like rabbits. Despite this being an artificial famine imposed upon the Hindu population, the very Prime Minister of UK has described it as something that the Hindus had done to themselves, that it was their own fault. The famine was imposed upon them. And Madhuri Mukherjee has described in Churchill's Secret War, the British Empire, and the ravaging of India during the World War II, has described that harsh British tax and export policies and poor infrastructure management caused multiple famines in India, claiming tens of millions of lives, most recently in Bengal in 1943. And Indians were forced to eat leaves, grass, human flesh, and parents threw their starving children into rivers and wells, while others committed suicide to escape their living hell. So you can see over the course of the British rule, millions, tens of millions of Hindus were put to death due to these artificial famines. And just to understand a little bit more, many people do not even know about these artificial famines that were imposed upon the Hindu population. Many people are unaware that these artificial famines, this genocide of the Hindu population, was forced upon them by the British population. And this is still very unknown today. It's unfortunately, even Hindus themselves are unaware of this attack upon them. And due to this starvation, due to this attack, due to this continuous subjugation, the Hindu population has been left completely destroyed, has been completely left destroyed and unable to live to the original glory that the Hindu population once had. Now, when people remember India, they only remember this starving child, the starving population. And this was unfortunately imposed upon us by the British occupation. During the British occupation, the British Empire imposed this poverty, this starvation, this stereotype, this image of how India is portrayed now. And the British Empire used other means also to subjugate the colonial, to subjugate the Hindu population during this time. One of these methods was by destroying the local industry to ensure dependence and poverty. So again, imposing poverty upon the British, imposing poverty upon the Indian population, the Hindu population. And prior to the colonial rule, India was the world's leading textile manufacturer, and they produced the finest fabrics. The British engaged in a systematic campaign to destroy the local handloom industry through harsh taxation and export policies that forced India to import British-made textiles and banned Indian textiles from being sold in the foreign markets. Within a generation, Indian weavers were turned into beggars and their indigenous skills were lost forever. So this was one of the many tactics used. Before the British occupation, India was known for its textiles. People from all over the world wanted to come and to trade for these textiles, as they were grand. They were one of the most sought after textiles across the globe. Many industries in India, many people wanted to come to visit India for this. And as we have seen, many indigenous communities have very unique traditions of handloom, of various weaves and different traditions. However, due to the British occupation, the British systematically destroying this, many of these traditional arts are lost, unfortunately. But the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is once again reviving these indigenous traditions, these indigenous arts. And the colonial rule also destroyed the local industry to ensure dependence. Again, they also attacked the Indian Railway. Of course, many of us know that the East India Company had created railways across India and the train system across India. And by 1878, the Indian Railway mechanics in Jamalpur in Bengal and Ajmer in Rajputana had become so proficient at maintaining locomotive trains that they started designing and building their own models at a fraction of the cost of the imported British trains. The British Parliament responded by passing an act in 1912 banning all local manufacture of trains to ensure India's economic dependence on their colonial masters and to destroy the native technological know-how. So again, continuously making the Hindu population dependent upon the British. Even though the Hindu population, the Indians, were able to learn and create their own locomotive trains, the British ensured that this did not happen by enforcing various acts and policies in order to ban the native population from making their own technology, from advancing their technology. And again, the British also used the methods of seizure, taxation, and ruin to attack the Hindu temples as well. So it was described in the journal in 1831. It was a strange but determined piece of policy when throughout the country the Pagoda lands were resumed by the East India Company and the Taztek allowances were granted in their place. Now let us contemplate the result of this plan. From one end of the country to the other, the pagodas, or the temples, are ruined and unmaintained. The revenues of the Tripati are on a gradual decline and will die in the lapse of years, a natural death. Some of the most celebrated temples in the country are worse off, but there are still, alas, many more strongholds of the country. So again, the British systematically took over these temples in order to destroy them, to completely destroy the Hindu population and destroy the Hindu temples. And this was a very systematic attack. The British also used false anti-Hindu narratives in order to project the Hindus as backwards, as oppressors, and in order to make it easier to rule over the and to subjugate the Hindu population. In the survey of the indigenous education in Madras during the Madras presidency, between 1822 and 1826, it was noted that British rulers perpetuated the narrative that Indians were generally illiterate and education was restricted to high caste Hindus. But their own survey revealed that every village had at least one school, and Shudras and other low caste children constituted 70 to 84% of students. In contrast, a century of direct British misrule of India left the population with a dismal 12% literacy rate. So the British justified their colonial rule by saying that they were bringing progress to the Hindu community, bringing literacy, bringing education to the Hindu community. But based on their own surveys, based on their own research, it was very clear that after the British rule, the education and literacy rate of the Hindu population had decreased far below what it was, and that the so-called low caste Hindus were much more educated before the British rule had imposed these this artificial narrative, this narrative upon the Hindu population. And the British also created a class of brown British natives. Thomas Macaulay of the East India Company had described in the Minute on Education, "We must at present do our best to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions whom we govern, a class of persons Indian in blood and color, but English in taste and opinions, in morals and in intellect. To that class we may leave it to refine the vernacular dialects of the country, to enrich those dialects with terms of science borrowed from the Western nomenclature, and to render them by degree fit vehicles for conveying knowledge to the great mass of the population." So the British created their own class of Indians who were British in taste and ideology, but brown in color, so that they could be interpreters between them and the Hindu population. And despite their best effort to adopt the English language, clothing, and mannerisms, the angelicized brown British native clerks of India were often viewed with contempt and ridiculed as Bengali bamboos by their white masters for their ornate speech, self-importance, and fawning attitude towards any Westerner that they met. And unfortunately, this thought current has been passed down, where the next generation has idealized the British and the white skin, the Western ideology. And this was a systematic way that the British attacked and subjugated the Hindu population. They also converted the native Hindu Rajas into proper British gentlemen. Here you can see just one example of how one of the Hindu kings was literally converted into a brown British gentleman. And in the Mayo College, Eton of India, it was described that, concerned at the rising awareness of nationalism from the Indian Mutiny of 1857, the British realized that to strengthen their hold in India, they, being just a handful, needed to widen their political and psychological management of India and Indians. Thus, they began to focus on the education of native princes and the pursuit of the objective in Macaulay's Minute on Education of 1837 to create a class of people Indian in blood and color, but English in opinion, in morals, and in intellect. And this became the cornerstone of their strategy. So despite there being just a very small number of British people, British rulers in India, they were able to subjugate the whole population by systematically attacking the native kingdoms, the native rajas, the kings, and by converting them into the brown British gentlemen. And this was passed down to the lower classes, and this ideology was passed down to the lower classes and the next generations, which is why even today the Western ideology is idealized compared to the traditional Hindu practices. Hindu ideology, the practices are still shown as backwards, as oppressive, as discriminatory, because of the narrative, the false narrative that the British imposed upon the Hindu population. And another way that the British attacked and criminalized the indigenous community were through various acts. One of the acts that the British used was the Criminal Tribes Act of 1871. And the British government passed this act in order to discriminate against various ethnic communities and to deem them subversive to the colonial authorities, simply because they did not conform to their idea of civilized living. And they targeted populations such as sadhus, sannyasis, tribals, nomads, gypsies, and shudras, which were presumed guilty by birth. And they were murdered, raped, arrested, and their children were separated from parents and held in penal colonies or quarantined without conviction or due process. And upon release from the British custody, they were targeted communities. These targeted communities were subject to surveillance and given tattoos to stigmatize them and make them easier to mark. So just by their very existence, these communities, including sadhus, including sannyasis, were considered criminals. And the Thugee and Dacoity Suppression Act also attacked and falsely showed the Thugee community as criminals in an effort to demonize Hindus and feed the stereotype of the savage Oriental. The British authorities and media sensationalized stories of bloodthirsty Thuggees or bandits who would often offer human sacrifices to the wicked and fearsome goddess Kali. And this image of the Thuggee was promoted worldwide as an example of all that was wrong with India. In addition to denigrating Hindu culture, the narrative of the Thuggee menace was also used to justify colonial rule, suspend civil liberties, and to target subversive elements that challenged the British hegemony. So the word Thuggee, the word thug actually, which many of us know as synonymous with delinquent or criminal, was actually derived from the word Thuggee, the community Thuggee, which was a traditional indigenous community in India. However, they were falsely portrayed as criminals, and this was projected all across the globe in order to show that the Hindu population needed to be subjugated by the British, needed to be ruled by the British. And unfortunately, this false narrative is still projected today. That word thug still has such a negative connotation, even still today. And during the British occupation, over $45 trillion was looted from India over the course of 200 years. Over 45 million Hindus were put to death due to artificial famines and poverty imposed by the British policies and reprisal killings for the 1857 mutiny, and over 680 native kingdoms were usurped by the British Raj. And we can actually go back to the previous slide. So we can go back to the previous slide. Sashi Tharoor of the Indian Parliament has described Yes, so Sashi Tharoor of the Indian Parliament has described that the British came to one of the richest countries in the world, and over the course of 200 years. Yes, we can go to the previous slide, please. Yes, so the Sashi Tharoor of the Indian Parliament has described that the British came to one of the richest countries of the world, and over 200 years of exploitation, looting, and destruction reduced it to a poster child of third world poverty. So the idea that many people have of India now, the impoverished child, the starving population, is something imposed by the British. Before the British occupation, India was one of the wealthiest countries across the globe. Many people wanted to come visit India for the various industries, the textile industry, the spice market. Many people wanted to experience the richness of the culture, the richness of the industries of India. However, the British systematically destroyed this and left the Indian population, the Hindu population, impoverished and completely dependent on the British. Yes, we can continue to the next slide, please. Yes, sorry for the technical glitch. So now we'll be understanding what some of the rulers of the, after India was secularized, after the Hindus in India had gained freedom from the British occupation, the British Empire, India became a secular nation, or so-called secular nation. However, the attitudes of the British was still carried over to in the secular India. The anti-Hindu narrative that the British imposed was still carried over into the secularized India. And Nehru, the first prime minister of India, has described what a disgusting and savage people we are. Politics, progress, socialism, communism, science, where are they before this black religious savagery? India can never be a Hindu republic. So here you can just see an example of one of the first rulers of the first leaders of the so-called secular India clearly still had a very anti-Hindu agenda. And you can see in the next slide what the first law minister and principal architect of the Indian Constitution has also described about the Hindu civilization, the Hindu population, the Hindu rule. Yes, sorry for the technical glitch. Yes, we can continue to the next slide. So B.R. Ambedkar, as we said, the first law minister of India and the principal architect of the Indian Constitution, who has still an influence of how India is still ruled today, because he was designed the very constitution which India is following today, has described that if Hindu Raj does become a fact, it will no doubt be the greatest calamity for this country. No matter what the Hindus say, Hinduism is a menace to liberty, equality, and fraternity. It is incompatible with democracy. Hindu Raj must be prevented at any cost. So here you can see again the very clear anti-Hindu narrative, the anti-Hindu agenda that the first rulers of the so-called secular India had. And the modern Indian legal system, academia, and media all systematically undermine, suppress, and delegitimize the Hindu institutions and culture. And they've done this through various methods by establishing taxation and government control of the Hindu temples, schools, and other institutions, while other religions are free from this interference. And Articles 26 through 30 of India's Constitution discriminates against Hindus by giving special rights and benefits to non-Hindus. This includes government benefits and scholarships. And Hindu kingdoms and self-governance was completely abolished. So this is a point to note here. During the British occupation, during the British rule in India, there were still many native kingdoms that still had their sovereignty. But after the secularization of India, all of these Hindu kingdoms were completely usurped and brought under the secular India, and the self-governance in these Hindu kingdoms were completely abolished by the Indian legal system. And they also used anti-superstition laws to criminalize against the Hindu practices. And mainstream Indian academia has described Hindus as sexist, racist, backwards, and oppressors, and negative media portrayals have also done the same in Bollywood and in TV. And media narratives have been used to stereotype and demoralize Hindus. In Bollywood and other mainstream media outlets consistently portray Hindu gods and gurus as cartoonish, dishonest, corrupt, and sex fiends in a manner that is similar to the British imperial propaganda. And many of us have seen this in both Bollywood movies and TV, how Hindu gods and gurus are portrayed as shown in these photos as jokers, as cartoonish, as criminals. And media narratives are used to shape human consciousness and further political agenda. The racist British colonial stereotypes portraying Hindus as superstitious, backwards, dishonest, and corrupt are perpetuated by their British brown successors in modern day India, completely unabated. So that is the same narrative that the British imposed upon the Hindus has been carried out by their successors, those who were Indian in skin, but still in ideology and taste, still carried the same British thought currents, the same British ideology that the British Empire imposed upon them. So now that we've understood the destruction of our Hindu civilization over the course of 1,000 years, how the British had systematically destroyed the Hindu population and undermined the native rule, had made the native Hindu population completely impoverished and created the wrong narrative of the Hindu population, how the Islamic invasions physically destroyed the Hindu population, how the British had systematically, psychologically destroyed the Hindu population. Let us understand now why we need to revive our Hindu nations and how the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is reviving the Hindu civilization. So the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has revealed the vision for the Hindu civilization, and directly in the words of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism himself, is described during the time of the Mahabharata. We Hindus had 56 deshas, 200 states, 1,700 samsthanas, and 10,000 sampradayas. In all 56, we Hindus are persecuted. Now we have lost all of the 56. The last of all was Nepal. I am the collective voice of all the persecuted Hindus. I will revive and rebuild a Hindu nation built on the Vedagamic principles as a refuge for all the practicing and aspiring Hindus, as a safe haven for all the persecuted Hindus. So what is Kailasa? This revival of Kailasa, the Hindu nation, is for reviving the whole life of enlightened civilization and all the great things it has to offer to the world, bringing legitimacy to all the offerings of Sanatana Hindu Dharma and sharing it with the world is the purpose of this Kailasa, the Hindu nation. Kailasa is the revival of the cosmic constitution. Kailasa is the model nation of how enlightened civilization should be administered and living. Politics, judiciary, education, economy, everything will be revived as Paramashivoham revealed in the Vedagamas, the Sanatana Hindu Dharma scriptures. Being one of the most persecuted civilizations, Hinduism is on the brink of extinction, such that the next generation may know about Hinduism only through our history books. So what can we do to stand up for Hindu civilization and all that it has offered to the world? What can we do to fulfill the commitment that we have given when we were given the Uttama birth of Sanatana Hindu birth? Today, Hinduism is a political orphan. The preservation and restoration of Hinduism's spiritual and cultural heritage is impossible without a national identity. So what can we do to save Hinduism? Let us reclaim our Hindu identity. As Devi Parashakti has revealed, as we have come to Bhuloka, we've forgotten the commitment that we've given, fallen into Maya, fallen into delusion due to fear and greed, and forgotten this commitment that we have given to protect Sanatana Hindu Dharma. So now let us reclaim our Hindu identity. We need to understand first that Hinduism is responsible for our successful life. If we are healthy, wealthy, rich, successful, peaceful, happy, respectable, have a stable family life, have the best mental health, we need to understand that Hinduism is responsible. Our Hindu identity is responsible. Our Hindu scriptures are responsible. It is our Hindu scriptures which have given us the best mental setup, and all the best things that we Hindus have are from our Hindu scriptures. And Hindus are amongst the richest and most successful ethnic community across the world. And Our Hindu scriptures, our Hindu lifestyle, our enlightened masters are responsible for this. Our Hindu thought currents are responsible for this. And here, just to look at one example of the success of the Hindu population across the globe. In Hindustan Times, it describes that Hindus are the most educated religious group in the US, according to Pew study reports. So this is just one example of how the Hindu population, no matter where they go, they experience success. So now it is time to reclaim our Hindu identity. It is not just the anti-Hindu elements being active, it is the responsible Hindus being inactive, which is responsible for this whole destruction of Hinduism. Let us now take responsibility for Hinduism and let all the Hindus all over the world reclaim our Hindu identity. So let us understand a little bit more about what is our responsibility of Hindus as revealed by Devi Parashakti. It is the responsibility of Hindus to revive this enlightened civilization again and again, and give all the gifts of the enlightened civilization to humanity. The revival of the enlightened civilization, the Kailasa, the Hindu nation, is the survival need of humanity, whether it comes to mental health, the climate change crisis, the suicide epidemic. No matter what issue, what crisis the globe, humanity is facing, there's only Hinduism that has a viable, sustainable solution, as the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has revealed most recently. There's only Hinduism that has a consciousness-based solution for this climate change crisis that we are all experiencing, that will affect humanity in the coming years much more and more in the coming years. And each being will experience the effects of this climate change crisis. There's only Hinduism that has the solution, a permanent solution, a conscious-based solution for this crisis. So this is an invitation to all of the Hindus out there, those who are born Hindus, those who are practicing Hindus, those who are sympathetic towards Hinduism, those who are curious about Hinduism, and those who want to explore and enjoy Hinduism. Come and become a part of this revival of Kailasa, and become a part of this revival of this whole Hindu civilization. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has built this whole new nation, has created this whole new nation, Kailasa, just for reviving this whole Hindu civilization and sharing all of its great gifts with the world. So come and become a part of this whole revival. You can become an e-citizen of Kailasa by visiting kailasa.org and signing up to become an e-Kailashian. Enjoy all the great benefits that Hinduism, that the Hindu civilization has to offer the world, and become a member of Kailasa, become an e-citizen of Kailasa. So now let us understand why we need Kailasa, why we need the only Hindu nation in the world, why humanity needs this, why this is the need of humanity right now. And let's understand from the words of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism himself.
I have incorporated this Kailasa, nation without borders. Kailasa, nation without borders. In a way, I can say whole universe is the Kailasa. Kailasa, nation without borders. I've incorporated in multiple countries. Each Kailasa will function in their own countries as per that country's law, within that country's law. Understand? The Kailasa is revived to do contribution, uniting the nations for contribution. Hinduism, Veda Agamas have great things to contribute to the world. Like the great power manifestation science, the ancient culture and arts, the ancient lifestyle truths, the ancient medical practices and medicinal knowledge, the ancient indigenous cultural heritage and jewelry, perfume, dance, music. In every level, Hinduism has so much to contribute. Veda Agamic traditions have so much to contribute. To share all this with the world, to contribute to the world. Hindus need to tell the world what they are contributing in every level. The brand of Hinduism itself is enriching and empowering and enlightening. Hinduism is all about enlightening the world. Empowering, enlightening, enriching the world. Contributing. That is our spiritual life. That is our spiritual strength. That is our spiritual core principle. O humanity, I request you with folded hands, some one corner of the world, if you just give me few hundred acres, I will keep this whole science alive. Leave it for the whole humanity freely. Fortunately, Paramashiva has given me the power to decode all this Hindu medicinal system, Hindu judiciary system, Hindu social law and order system, Hindu power manifestation system, Hindu mental sciences system, Hindu yogic sciences, the sciences of Hindu biology, Hindu physics, Hindu psychology, Hindu physiology, Hindu chemistry, all this Paramashiva has given me the power to decode. Whatever the remaining scriptures are available with the humanity, Paramashiva has blessed me, and I have collected. Not only I have collected and organized, I can decode. This whole science can be kept alive in any one corner of the world. Just few hundred acres are given for me to live peacefully and exist peacefully, I can store this whole thing alive and contribute it to humanity. Humanity can become better and better and better. I can make the planet Earth so much better place to live. I am here to contribute, and I'll continue to contribute as long as I am allowed to live. I will contribute. I have collected all the remaining available scriptures, maybe 2 crore books. 2 crore means 20 million, I think, books on Hindu physics, Hindu chemistry, Hindu biology, Hindu physiology, Hindu psychology, Hindu law and order, Hindu social system, the power manifestation sciences of Hinduism, yogic sciences of Hinduism. I have collected, and Paramashiva has given me the blessings and power to decode. I have decoded and continuing to decode them. If the humanity, somebody is kind enough to give me few hundred acres in one corner of the world and let me live peacefully, I can keep all these scriptures there and go on sharing with the world, revealing these whole sciences to the world, and go on contributing. I don't need anything other than 1 cup of curd rice every day. That's all. A cup of curd rice per day, over. I can go on be giving this to the world. I can add to the world. I can make the world better place to live. That's all I have to say. Thousands of medicines are described detail in ancient Siddha and Ayurvedic scriptures. Paramashiva has given me the power to decode them, read them, and properly translate and map them to the modern day human language. And I am ready to work 20 hours a day. I just need few hundred acres where I can sit peacefully and keep this library, run a Gurukul where thousands of people can learn this and share it with the world. Understand? I am only interested in contributing, contributing. if we can decode all this great knowledge, whole world can prosper from this knowledge. Whole world can enjoy from this knowledge. If I prosper, I will only create a university. I will not create anything else. If the Hindus prosper, they will only create education institutions. Because Hinduism is all about giving, contributing. If I prosper, I'll create university, that's all. Kailasa is all about university to decode the ancient sciences and share with the world. Understand? Every day I am sitting and going on decoding, writing notes on my books and writing details on my books. Whether it is making human beings manifest powers, and I have also now started downloading and decoding the science of making animals manifest powers. Whether making people manifest powers or healing, in every level, life is all about contribution, contribution, contribution.
Time itself is nothing but your decision to struggle with the same rut. Your decision to struggle with the same rut is time, Kala. Your decision to swallow time is Kala Bhairava. Stand. Be a conscious woman or man. Be conscious being. Shrink the time through conscious will persistence. Make the future into present by being ferocious with yourself. nothing but your decision to struggle with the same rut. Your decision to struggle with the same rut is time, Kala. Your decision to swallow time is Kala Bhairava. Stand. Be a conscious woman or man. Be conscious being. Shrink the time through conscious will persistence. Make the future into present by being ferocious with yourself. Time itself is nothing but your decision to struggle with the same rut. Your decision to struggle with the same rut is time, Kala. Your decision to swallow time is Kala Bhairava. Stand. Be a conscious woman or man. Be conscious being. Shrink the time through conscious will persistence. Make the future into present by being ferocious with yourself. Time itself is nothing but your decision to struggle with the same rut. Your decision to struggle with the same rut is time, Kala. Your decision to swallow time is Kala Bhairava. Stand. Be a conscious woman or man. Be conscious being. Shrink the time through conscious will persistence. itself is nothing but your decision to struggle with the same rut. Your decision to struggle with the same rut is time, Kala. Your decision to swallow time is Kala Bhairava. Stand. Be a conscious woman or man. Be conscious being. Shrink the time through conscious will persistence. Make the future into present by being ferocious with yourself. Time itself is nothing but your decision to struggle with the same rut. Your decision to struggle with the same rut is time, Kala. Your decision to swallow time is Kala Bhairava. Stand. Be a conscious woman or man. Be conscious being. Shrink the time through conscious will persistence. Make the future into present by being ferocious with yourself.
Yes, Nithyananda, welcome back to your viewers. So now that we have understood a little bit about what Devi's revelations are and how Devi has revealed about the sacred secret of Hindu birth, let us understand how we can connect to Devi Parashakti more deeply, how we can receive the blessings of Devi Parashakti, and how we can deepen our connection to Devi. So in this segment, we'll be understanding some of the various offerings that we can make to Devi Parashakti. So first, let us understand a little bit about the consciousness. Both masculine and feminine consciousness have to be expressed equally by every human being in order to be enlightened. Until enlightenment, only the masculine dimension expresses more than the feminine dimension, irrespective of whether you are in the male or the female body. And for every human being, you have to complete with these 5 dimensions: the Pitrus, the ancestors, the Kula Devatas, the family deities, the parents, the nature, and of course, Guru himself, who will ultimately bestow enlightenment upon you. And only once you've completed with these 5 dimensions, you will be able to achieve enlightenment. And incompletions are life negative and adharmic cognitions in these 5 dimensions. These lead to misconstrued karana and karya, the cause and effect. And this further leads to suffering and pain and calamities in both the individual, personal, and the collective global levels. Being sensitive is being aware and in gratitude to life for everything, from the air that we breathe, to the place that we sit, to the energy to feel that you exist, to the energy to celebrate your existence. And there are 43 energies that constitute our human body. When all 43 of these energies are integrated to Dharma, we become enlightened. Dharma is the cosmic motherly completion and sensitivity from the level of the Panchabhutas. And this is the core principle of the cosmos. Awakening the sacred feminine is the key to enlightenment. When awakened, a man expresses the sacred feminine consciousness. He becomes a great, revered leader. When awakened, a woman expresses sacred feminine consciousness. She becomes Devi, the cosmic mother, expressing all powers. So let us understand conscious sovereignty, which is the key to awaken the sacred feminine consciousness. And out of millions of paths, the easiest, sweetest, and most beautiful path to enlightenment is connecting with the cosmos as mother, as Devi Parashakti, the cosmic feminine consciousness. Devi is the one who expresses as God, as Guru, and all the manifestations in this universe. She can straight away deliver enlightenment by connecting through the cosmic umbilical cord. And offerings are not made to benefit the divine, of course, but to close our gap with the divine consciousness. When we achieve completion with the Divine Mother, her infinite powers with her sweet grace starts nourishing all of our dimensions through the cosmic umbilical cord. And there's nothing too small or too big one can offer to connect with the Divine Mother. It has to be from that space of love of a child looking at her mother and offering her something with deep gratitude and love. It can be a cup of milk, a flower, or it can be a precious jewel to adorn her smiling face or her hair. And the Vedic rishis have clearly stated that the technique to connect with the sacred feminine, to awaken the same qualities in us, one can connect with Paramashiva for oneness, but with the divine cosmic mother, it is only by worshiping her divine lotus feet with devotion. And mother worship is the most non-violent, most peace-centered, most healing, soothing, and sweetest path to enlightenment among all the traditions on planet Earth. Worshipping including contemplating, meditating through the sacred offerings of mantras and oblations at her feet. So why do we worship the divine feminine? Because she is the ultimate and she can transmit that experience to each of us. And in this verse from the Devi Suktam, Devi describes herself. I walk as the 11 Rudras. I walk as the Vasus. I walk as Vishnu and other Adityas and all divine forms, the Vishwadevas, assuming the form of the inner self of all the gods. I hold aloft Mitra and Varuna, even as Indra and Agni I do, and the Ashwini twins too. So this is from the Rig Veda, the Devi Suktam, and it continues on. Ekadasha Rudras, Maharudras, Ashtavasus, Vadashadityas, Vishvadevata, all of them are my retinue. I move around in my various forms with them as my retinue. I protect all of them, including Mitra, Varuna, Indra, Agni, and the Ashwini Devatas. Devi, in this verse, just declares herself as the inner self of all the gods, the divine energies. And she is all pervading and all permeating. You can worship all the gods and goddesses just by worshiping the feet of Devi Parashakti. So now, in this segment, we'll be understanding how we can worship Devi Parashakti, how we can connect with Devi Parashakti and experience that completion with the Divine Cosmic Mother, experience the love of the Divine Cosmic Mother herself. So the first offering that we have is the Hundi offering. This is a general donation. And like in any temple that you might visit, they'll just offer a few dollars in the Hundi just to offer your love, your gratitude, your devotion to the divine for happening in your life. You can do the same. Kailasa has made this very easily available online for you through the Hundi offering. So you can just offer how much ever you would like. Just say thank you, just offer your love. And in this verse, it describes that Devi is fond of true devotion and she is realized through true devotion. She can be won over through true devotion and she removes all fears. So if there's any fear in the minds of the devotees, Devi is sure to remove that fear. It is stated that Devi likes to be worshipped in autumn, and here it's not meant the autumn, the season, but rather the autumn of our lives, when our thoughts turn more and more inwards, and the role of the divine becomes much more known and clearly understood, and the need for Devi worship becomes much stronger. And Devi is the one who bestows happiness on all of her devotees. So you can offer gratitude and devotion to Devi Parashakti by offering any amount that you would like in the Hundi. And your name shall be chanted during the puja to Devi Parashakti. The next offering is the Sankalpa offering, the offering of your conscious resolution. And in the Saundarya Lahari, it describes that the mantras I chant with the sacrifice in my soul become chanting of your name. Let all my movements become auspicious mudras. Let my travel become perambulations around thee. Let the act of eating and drinking become fire oblations, offerings in the homas, yajnas to thee. Let my act of sleeping become salutations to you. And let all actions of pleasure of mine become part of your worship. So you can receive blessings for both asked and unasked, remembered and forgotten wishes to manifest by the grace of Devi Parashakti herself when you offer the Sankalpa, the offering of your conscious resolution. The next offering is the Devi Sahasranam Swarnakasu. This is the offering of the gold coin jewelry, which will be inscribed with the various names of Devi Parashakti. So each of these various names of Devi Parashakti are not just her names, but rather her various divine auspicious qualities. So when you offer this Devi Sahasranam Swarnakasu, you will be blessed to manifest all of the Ananta Kalyana Gunas, all the various divine, feminine, auspicious, conscious attributes and powers of Devi Parashakti herself. And the next offering is the Mukta Anguti, the finger ring with a pearl. And in the Devi Suktam, it describes that the goddess who brings good fortune, who is praised by the gods, who is served by Devendra, who is praised by the Devas, troubled by the Asuras, who is praised and remembered as devotion to her solves all, who is the source of all good in the world. And let that goddess destroy all obstacles. So you can offer this Mukta Anguti and receive the blessings for protection from all dangers and fears in your life. The next offering is the Swarna Pushpa, the offering of the golden lotus. And the golden lotus, the lotus itself has great significance. It's found in the worship of almost every god and goddess, and it's used in many rituals. So it has great significance. And in this verse, it describes that Devi is the one who bestows accomplishments and intellect and who showers worldly prosperity. Devi who powers the subtle mantra of the cosmos. I bow to you, O Devi Mahalakshmi. So you can offer the golden lotus, the Swarna Pushpa, and receive blessings for attracting positive relationships in personal and business dimensions of your life. The next offering is the Swarna Pushpa, the Swarnamati, the offering of the golden toe ring. And in the Saundarya Lahari, it describes the power of Devi's very toenails, like just the dust of the feet of Devi Parashakti. And it describes Lord Brahma, the creator of selects a dust from your feet and creates this world. The great Adi Shesha, with thousands of heads, somehow carries a dust of your feet with great effort. And the great Lord Rudra takes it and powders it nicely and uses it as the holy ash. So you can see that just a grain of dust from Devi Parashakti's feet are enough to create this whole world. So you can offer the Swarnamati and receive blessings for a life of leadership qualities by offering worship to the divine lotus feet of Devi Parashakti, achieved by even worshiping a tiny grain of dust from her feet. And the Mati is a gold toe ring to worship by adorning the divine feet of Devi Parashakti. And the Mandika is the next offering. It's gold hairline jewelry. And the Mandika represents the overflowing nectar from the Sahasrara. And in this verse, it describes that Devi is the one that makes the nectar flow from the Sahasrara, the crown center, to the Anya, the third eye, and permeates all our 72,000 nadis and gives us the ultimate experience of the cosmos. So when you offer this Mandika, you will be blessed to experience the overflowing Sahasrara and to achieve the blessings of the lifestyle of enlightenment. The next offering is the Pratiksha Pada Puja, the most favorite offering of all the devotees and disciples of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, who is manifesting Devi Parashakti herself. And in this verse, Adi Shankaracharya describes the greatness of worshipping just the feet of the Guru. And he describes, my repute has traveled in all directions through my philanthropy and prowess. All the things of this world are in my hands. as rewards for my virtues. Yet, if one's minds be not centered upon the lotus feet of the Guru, what then? What then? What then? So you can see, you may be achieving everything in the world, but if your mind is not fixed upon the Guru, then what is the use of all of this? So you can offer the Pratikshapada Puja to the feet of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, who is manifesting Devi Parashakti, the feminine consciousness, and the one who is beyond the idea of male and female. And you can receive the most auspicious blessings on your path to enlightenment. The next offering, the last offering that we have, is the Vastra Seva, the offering of clothing to the feet of Devi Parashakti. And this is an offering done during the Pratikshapada Puja. The Vastram is the clothing, which is offered to the Guru, to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, who is the dimension of the Cosmic Mother, during the Pratikshapada Puja, and you will be blessed with the sweetest path to enlightenment, with complete protection. So now here you can see the various offerings that are available for you to make, and you can offer any of these, and we'll be guiding you through the process of making these offerings and how you can make these offerings. So we'll be right back after a quick break and understand how we can make these various offerings. gift to humanity from the supreme concept of Hinduism when everyone was experiencing a time of crisis, when everyone needed to experience the
Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Nithyananda Paramashivoham.
Nithyanandam. Today is the third day of the Uttaranga Utsava, the conclusory celebrations of Nithyanandotsavam, the celebration of the 45th Jayanti, that is, the 45th anniversary of the happening of the Avatar, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Jagadguru Mahasannidhanam, His Divine Holiness, Bhagwan Nithyananda Paramashivam, the Nijavatara, the 1008th incarnation of Paramashiva, who has descended to give superconscious breakthrough to humanity. Nithyanandotsavam is being celebrated all over Kailasa, the first nation for all Hindus. Today, Bhagwan Shri Subramanya Swami, the son of Paramashiva, is going to grace us in the Tepal festival, Tepotsavam. Tepal is a grandly decorated water float which is set afloat in the waters of the temple tank. The grandly decorated deity of Shri Subramanya Swami will be offered puja and aradhana and will be gracefully taken around on a procession on the water float. The Tepotsavam is a beautiful ritual that gently brings the intense energy of the 21-day Nithyananda Brahmotsavam to a blissful peace.
Nithyanandam Paramashivoham Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gaganasadrisham Tattvamasyadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami Nithyananda समारम्भाम् नित्यानन्देश्वरि परमशिवशक्तिनि मध्यमाम् नित्यानन्दपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ललाटे त्रिपुण्ड्रे निरकृतकस्तूरीतिलकः स्फुरन्मालाधारस्फुरितगरिगोपीनवसनः दधानो दुस्तारं शिरसि फणिराजं शशिकला प्रदीपः अरुणगिरियोगी विजयते वन्दे सिन्दूरकान्तिं शरविपिनभवम् श्रीमयूराधिरूढम् षड्भद्रं देवसेना मधुरिपुतनया वल्लभं द्वादशाक्षरम् शक्तिं बाणं कृपाणं ध्वजमपि च वदामि चाभयं सव्यहस्तैः चापं वज्रं सरोजं कटकमिवरं शूलमण्यैर्दधानम् धूर्वन्तं धूर्वतैयोऽस्मान् धूर्वदितं धूर्वयं वयं धूर्वामस्वं देवानामसि संस्थितमं बभ्रितमं दुष्टतमं वह्नितमं देवहूतममहृतमसि हविर्दानं दृगुमस्वमाह्वार्मित्रस्य त्वा चक्षुषा प्रेक्ष्ये माभेर्मा संविक्तामात्वाहि कुंसिषुम् श्रीवल्ली देवसेना समेत श्री सुब्रह्मण्य स्वामिने नमः धूपमाघ्रापयामि उद्दीप्य स्वजातवेदो भग्नन्नरतिं मम पशुगश्चमह्यमावह जीवनं च दिशो दिशा मानो हि गुंसे जातवेदो कामश्वं पुरुषं जगते अभिधदगहिष्यया परिपातया श्रीवल्ली देवसेना समेत श्री सुब्रह्मण्य स्वामिने नमः दीपं संदर्शयामि मधुवातारतायते मधुक्षरन्ति सिन्धवः माध्वीर्णसन्त्वोषधीः मधुनक्तमुदोषसि मधुमत्पार्थिवगुं रजः मधुद्योरस्तु नः पिता मधुमान्नो वनस्पतिर्मधुमागमस्तु सूर्यः माध्वीर्गावो भवन्तु नः मधु 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 श्रीवल्ली देवसेना समेत श्री सुब्रह्मण्य स्वामिने नमः अमृतं महानैवेद्यं निवेदयामि नैवेद्यानन्तरमाचमनं समर्पयामि ॐ हन्येत्यायजते इमां जनतां सङ्गृह्णानीति द्वादशारण्येरसना भवति द्वादशमासा संवत्सरः संवत्सरमेवावरुन्धे मौञ्जी भवति ऊर्ध्वै मुञ्जाः ऊर्जमेवावरुन्धे चित्रा नक्षत्रं भवति चित्रं वा एतत् कर्म। श्रीवल्ली देवसेना समेत श्री सुब्रह्मण्य स्वामिने नमः। अलंकार दीपं संदर्शयामि। ओम त्रीणि त्रीणि वै देवानामृद्धानि त्रीणि छन्दागुंसि त्रीणि सवनानि त्रय इमे लोकाः ऋद्ध्यामेव तद्वीर्य एषु लोकेषु प्रतिष्ठति यच्चातुर्मास्य याज्यात्मनो नावद्येते। त्रिनेत्रदीपं संदर्शयामि। ओम ईशानः सर्वविद्यानामीश्वरः सर्वभूतानां ब्रह्माधिपतिर्ब्रह्मणोऽधिपतिर्ब्रह्मा शिवो मे अस्तु सदा शिवो। तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महादेवाय धीमहि तन्नो रुद्रः प्रचोदयात्। ओम अघोरेभ्यो घोरेभ्यो घोरघोरतरेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः सर्वसर्वेभ्यो नमस्ते अस्तु रुद्ररूपेभ्यः। ओम वामदेवाय नमो ज्येष्ठाय नमः श्रेष्ठाय नमो रुद्राय नमः कालाय नमः बलविकरणाय नमो बलविकरणाय नमो बलाय नमो बलप्रमथनाय नमः सर्वभूतदमनाय नमो मनोन्मनाय नमः। ओम सद्यो जातं प्रपद्यामि सद्यो जाताय वै नमो नमः। भवे भवे नाति भवे भव स्वमां भवोद्भवाय नमः। हिरण्यपात्रमधो पूर्णं ददाति मधव्यो सानीति एकधा ब्रह्मण उपहरति एकधैव यजमान आयुस्तेजो दधाति। श्रीवल्ली देवसेना समेत श्री सुब्रह्मण्य स्वामिने नमः। कुंभदीपं संदर्शयामि। ओम तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महासेनाय धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात्। ओम तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महासेनाय धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महासेनाय धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात्। कर्पूरनीराजनं सन्दर्शयामि। ॐ बृहत्सामक्षत्रवृद्वृद्धवृष्येयं दृष्टुभौजशुभितमुग्रवीरम् इन्द्रस्तोमेन पञ्चदशेन मध्यमिदं वातेन सकरेण रक्षान् धारयामि। ॐ नवो नवो भवति जायमानोऽर्हां केतुरुषसामेत्यग्रम् भागं देवेभ्यो विदधाद्यायन प्रचन्द्रमास्तिरते दीर्घमायुः। ॐ मूर्धानं दिवो अरतिं पृथिव्या वैश्वानरभृताय जातमग्निम् कविगुं सम्राजमतिथिं जनानामासन्नापात्रं जनयन्त देवाः। ॐ दूरमस्मच्छत्रवो यन्तु भीताः तदिन्द्राग्निवृणुतां तद्विशाखे तन्नो देवा अनुमदन्तु यज्ञम् पश्चात् पुरस्तादभयन्नो अस्तु। ॐ वायुस्ताकुम् अग्रे प्रमुमोक्तु देवः प्रजापतिः प्रजया संविधानः प्रमुञ्चमाना भुवनस्य रेतो गातुं धत्त यजमानाय देवाः उपाकृतकुं शशमानं यदस्ताः जीवं देवानामप्येतुपाथः। ॐ केतुं कृण्वन्न केतवे पेशो मर्या अपेशसे समुषद्भिरजायथाः ब्रह्मा देवानां पदवीः कवीनां ऋषिर्विप्राणां महिषो मृगाणां शेनो गृध्रानागस्वधिर्वनानागसोमः पवित्रमत्येतिर्ने भन्ने सचित्रचित्रं चितयन्तमस्मै चित्रक्षत्रचित्रतामं वयोधां चन्द्रं रयिं पूर्वीरं बृहन्तं चन्द्राभिर्गृणते युवस्वा। राजाधिराजाय प्रसह्यसाहिने नमो वयं वै श्रवणाय कुर्महे समे कामाय मह्यं कामेश्वरो वै श्रवणो ददातो कुबेराय वै श्रवणाय महाराजाय नमः। ॐ तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महासेनाय धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महासेनाय धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात्। श्री वल्ली देवसेना समेत श्री सुब्रह्मण्य स्वामी नमो नमः। सर्वदेव देवी स्वरूपाय भगवते श्री नित्यानंद परमशिवाय नमः। कर्पूर नीराजनं संदर्शयामि। पुष्पं वेद पुष्पवान् प्रजावान् पशुमान् भवति। चन्द्रमा वा अपां पुष्पं पुष्पवान् प्रजावान् पशुमान् भवति। य एवं वेद यो वामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति। अग्निर्वा अपामायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति। यो अग्निरायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति। आपो वा अग्निरायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति। य एवं वेद यो वामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति। वायुर्वा अपामायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति। यो वायोरायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति। आपो वै वायोरायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति। य एवं वेद यो वामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति। अथो वै तपन्नपामायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति। यो पश्यतपद आयतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति। आपो वा अमुष्यतपद आयतनम् आयतनवान् भवति। य एवं वेद यो वामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति। चन्द्रमा वा अपामायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति। यश्चन्द्रमस आयतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति। आपो वै चन्द्रमस आयतनम् आयतनवान् भवति। य एवं वेद यो वामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति। नक्षत्राणि वा अपामायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति। यो नक्षत्राणामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति। आपो वै नक्षत्राणामायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति। य एवं वेद यो वामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति। पर्जन्यो वा अपामायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति। यः पर्जन्यस्यायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति। आपो वै पर्जन्यस्यायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति। य एवं वेद यो वामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति। संवत्सरो वा अपामायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति। यः संवत्सरस्यायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति। आपो वै संवत्सरस्यायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति। य एवं वेद योऽप्सु नावं प्रतिष्ठितां वेद प्रत्येव तिष्ठति। श्रीवल्ली देवसेना समेत श्री सुब्रह्मण्य स्वामिने नमो नमः। वेदोक्त मंत्र पुष्पांजलिं समर्पयामि।
The Teppotsavam is a beautiful ritual that gently brings the intense energy of the 21-day Nithyananda Paramashivam to a blissful peace. Teppal is basically a grandly decorated water float which is set afloat in the waters of the temple tank. Now, let us witness the beautiful ritual when the grandly decorated deity of Sri Subramanya Swami will be gracefully taken around on a procession on the water float and then offered puja.
नमो अस्तु सर्वेभ्यो ये के च पृथिवी मनो ये अन्तरिक्षे ये दिवि तेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यो नमः। ये दोरोचने दिवो ये वासूर्यस्य रश्मिषो येषामप्सु सदः कृतं तेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यो नमः। या ईशवो यातु धानानां ये वा वनस्पति गुम्रणो ये वावटेषु शेरते तेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यो नमः। इदगुं सर्वेभ्यो हविरस्तु जुष्टम् आश्लेषा येषामनुयन्ति चेतः ये अन्तरिक्षं पृथिवीं क्षियन्ति तेन सर्पासो हववागमिष्टाः ये रोचने सूर्यस्यापि सर्पाः ये दिवं देवीमनुसञ्चरन्ति येषामाश्लेषा अनुयन्ति कामम् तेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यो मधुमज्जुहोमि निघृष्वैरसामायुतैः कालैर्हरित्वमापन्नैः इन्द्राय हि सहस्रयुग अग्निर्विभ्राष्टिवसनः वायुश्वेतसि कद्रुकः संवत्सरो विषुवर्णैः नित्यास्तेऽनुचरास्तव सुब्रह्मण्योऽगुं सुब्रह्मण्योऽगुं सुब्रह्मण्यो ॐ तच्छयोरावृणीमहे गातुर्यज्ञाय गातुर्यज्ञपतये दैवी स्वस्तिरस्तु नः स्वस्तिर्मानुषेभ्यः ऊर्ध्वं जिगातु भेषजं शन्नो अस्तु द्विपदे शं चतुष्पदे ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सहस्रशीर्षा पुरुषः सहस्राक्षः सहस्रपात् स भूमिं विश्वतो वृत्वा अत्यतिष्ठद्दशाङ्गुलम् पुरुष एवेदगुं सर्वम् यद्भूतं यच्च भव्यम् हुतामृतत्वस्येषा नः यदन्नेनातिरोहति एतावानस्य महिमा अतो ज्यायागश्च पूरुषः पादोऽस्य विश्वभूतानि त्रिपादस्यामृतं दिवि त्रिपादोर्ध्व उदयेत् पुरुषः पादोऽस्येह भवात् पुनः ततो विश्वं व्यक्रामत् शासनान शने अभि तस्माद् विराड जायत विराजो अधिपुरुषः स जातो अत्यरिच्यत पश्चात् भूमिमथो पुरः यत्पुरुषेण हविषा देवा यज्ञमतन्वत वसन्तो अस्यासीदाज्यम् ग्रीष्म इत्मः शरद्धविः सप्तास्यासन् परिधयः त्रिसप्तः समिधः कृताः देवायज्ञं तन्वानाः अबध्नन् पुरुषं पशुं तैयज्ञं बर्हिषि प्रोक्षन् पुरुषं जातमग्रतः तेन देवा अयजन्त साध्या ऋषयश्च ये तस्मात् यज्ञात् सर्वहुतः सम्भृतं वृषदाज्यं पशुगस्तागिश्चक्रे वायव्याने आरण्याग्राम्याश्च ये ॐ तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महासेनाय धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात् ॐ तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महासेनाय धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात् ॐ तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महासेनाय धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात्। श्रीवल्ली देवसेना समेत श्री आनंद सुब्रह्मण्य स्वामिने नमो नमः। कर्पूर नीराजनं संदर्शयामि रक्षां धारयामि।
ஆடி வரும் தெப்பம் அசைந்து வரும் தெப்பம் தரும் தெப்பம் நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம். கண்கள் கவரும் கொள்ளை அழகோ நித்யன் வரும் ஆனந்த தெப்பம். ஆடி வரும் தெப்பம் அசைந்து வரும் தெப்பம் ஞானம் தரும் தெப்பம் நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம். அழகாக வெள்ளி நிலவது தரையிறங்கியதோ விளக்காக விண்மீன்களும் ஒளி கூட்டியதோ. அழகாக வெள்ளி நிலவது தரையிறங்கியதோ விளக்காக விண்மீன்களும் ஒளி கூட்டியதோ. அசைந்து வரும் தெப்பம் ஞானம் தரும் தெப்பம் நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம். தெப்பம் கண்கள் கவரும் கொள்ளை அழகோ நித்யன் வரும் ஆனந்த தெப்பம் ஆடி வரும் தெப்பம் அசைந்து வரும் தெப்பம் ஞானம் தரும் தெப்பம் நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம் பகையாய் வரும் எண்ணம் யாவையுமே செயலிழக்காதா சுகமாய் நித்யன் பாதம் தன்னில் வந்து சரணடையாதா பகையாய் வரும் எண்ணம் யாவையுமே செயலிழக்காதா சுகமாய் நித்யன் பாதம் தன்னில் வந்து சரணடையாதா வஞ்சகரையும் தெப்பத்திருக்காட்சி மாற்றிடுமோ கொஞ்சம் முகமோ முக்தி நிலைக்கே நம்மை ஏற்றிடுமோ எழிலாய் வருமோ நித்யானந்தன் ஆனந்த தெப்பம் வழிதான் தருமோ நித்யனவன் ஞானத்தின் தெப்பம் ஆடி வரும் தெப்பம் அசைந்து வரும் தெப்பம் ஞானம் தரும் தெப்பம் நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம் ஆடி வரும் தெப்பம் அசைந்து வரும் தெப்பம் ஞானம் தரும் தெப்பம் நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம் வைத்திய சரோவரத்தில் வலம் வரும் தெய்வம் அவன் வேண்டிடும் அன்பருக்கே வரம் தரும் வள்ளலவன் கண்கள் கவரும் கொள்ளை அழகோ நித்யன் வரும் ஆனந்த தெப்பம் கண்கள் கவரும் கொள்ளை அழகோ நித்யன் வரும் ஆனந்த தெப்பம் ஆடி வரும் தெப்பம் அசைந்து வரும் தெப்பம் ஞானம் தரும் தெப்பம் நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம் வைத்திய சரோவரத்தில் வலம் வரும் தெய்வம் அவன் வேண்டிடும் அன்பருக்கே வரம் தரும் வள்ளலவன் கண்கள் கவரும் கொள்ளை அழகோ நித்யன் வரும் ஆனந்த தெப்பம் கண்கள் கவரும் கொள்ளை அழகோ நித்யன் வரும் ஆனந்த தெப்பம் ஆடி வரும் தெப்பம் அசைந்து வரும் தெப்பம் ஞானம் தரும் தெப்பம் நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம் விளக்காக விண்மீன்களும் ஒளி கூட்டியதோ, அழகாக வெள்ளி நிலவது தரையிறங்கியதோ, விளக்காக விண்மீன்களும் ஒளி கூட்டியதோ, விண்ணும் அதிரும் இடி முழக்கம் இசையானதோ, கண்ணை பறிக்கும் ஒளி மின்னல் ஸ்ருதி சேர்த்ததுவோ, சுகமாய் தென்றல் சாமரங்கள் வீசுகின்றதோ, அசையும் மரங்கள் மங்களமாய் ஆடுகின்றதோ, ஆடி வரும் தெப்பம் அசைந்து வரும் தெப்பம், ஞானம் தரும் தெப்பம் நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம். முல்லையொடு செண்பகமும் மல்லி மலர் சோலை, அல்லியொடு வில்வமெனும் தெய்வ மலர் மாலை, மின்னும் தோரணமாய் தெப்பம் தனு சிரிக்கும் நித்யனவன் பாதம் தனை வருடி மிக்க மனம் களிக்கும், உரைதான் நிலையோ ஆனந்தத்தின் நிலையை விளக்க, மிகைதான் அழகோ வார்த்தை இல்லை பதமாய் இசைக்க, ஆடி வரும் தெப்பம் அசைந்து வரும் தெப்பம், ஞானம் தரும் தெப்பம் நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம்.
तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महासेनाय धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महासेनाय धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महासेनाय धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात्। श्री वल्ली देवसेना समेत श्री सुब्रह्मण्य स्वामिने नमो नमः। कर्पूर नीराजनं सन्दर्शयामि, रक्षां धारयामि।
கொள்ளை அழகோ நித்யன் வரும் ஆனந்த தெப்பம், ஆடி வரும் தெப்பம் அசைந்து வரும் தெப்பம், ஞானம் தரும் தெப்பம் நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம். பகையாய் வரும் எண்ணம் யாவையுமே செயலிழக்காதா, சுகமாய் நித்தியன் பாதம் தன்னில் வந்து சரணடையாதா. பகையாய் வரும் எண்ணம் யாவையுமே செயலிழக்காதா, சுகமாய் நித்தியன் பாதம் தன்னில் வந்து சரணடையாதா. வஞ்சகரையும் தெப்பத்திருக்காட்சி மாற்றிடுமோ, கொஞ்சம் முகமோ முக்தி நிலைக்கே நம்மை ஏற்றிடுமோ, எழிலாய் வருமோ நித்யானந்த அசைந்து வரும் தெப்பம், ஞானம் தரும் தெப்பம், நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம். அசைந்து வரும் தெப்பம், ஞானம் தரும் தெப்பம், நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம். வைத்திய சரோவரத்தில் வலம் வரும் தெய்வம் அவன், வேண்டிடும் அன்பருக்கே வரம் தரும் வள்ளலவன். கண்கள் கவரும் கொள்ளை அழகோ நித்யன் வரும் ஆனந்த தெப்பம். கண்கள் கவரும் கொள்ளை அழகோ நித்யன் வரும் ஆனந்த தெப்பம். ஆடி வரும் தெப்பம், அசைந்து வரும் தெப்பம், ஞானம் தரும் தெப்பம், நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம். வைத்திய சரோவரத்தில் வலம் வரும் தெய்வம் அவன், வேண்டிடும் அன்பருக்கே வரம் தரும் வள்ளலவன். கண்கள் கவரும் கொள்ளை அழகோ நித்யன் வரும் ஆனந்த தெப்பம். கண்கள் கவரும் கொள்ளை அழகோ நித்யன் வரும் ஆனந்த தெப்பம். ஆடி வரும் தெப்பம், அசைந்து வரும் தெப்பம், ஞானம் தரும் தெப்பம், நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம். கார்முகிலும் விண்ணிருந்து பூமியில் இறங்கியதோ, தேரெனவே நீரில் வரும் தெப்பமதை கண்டதுவோ. நித்யன் வரும் தெப்பமதன் கோபுரமாய் மாறியதோ. இத்தரையில் மழை பொழியும் வரம் தனை வேண்டியதோ. வையம் குளிர வான்முகிலுக்கே வரம் தரும் ஆனந்தன் தெப்பம். கண்கள் கவரும் கொள்ளை அழகோ நித்யன் வரும் ஆனந்த தெப்பம். ஆடி வரும் தெப்பம், அசைந்து வரும் தெப்பம், ஞானம் தரும் தெப்பம், நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம். அழகாக வெள்ளி நிலவது தரையிறங்கியதோ. விளக்காக விண்மீன்களும் ஒளி கூட்டியதோ. அழகாக வெள்ளி நிலவது தரையிறங்கியதோ. விளக்காக விண்மீன்களும் ஒளி கூட்டியதோ. விண்ணும் அதிரும் இடி முழக்கம் இசையானதுவோ. கண்ணை பறிக்கும் ஒளி மின்னல் ஸ்ருதி சேர்த்ததுவோ. சுகமாய் தென்றல் சாமரங்கள் வீசுகின்றதோ. அசையும் மரங்கள் மங்களமாய் ஆடுகின்றதோ. ஆடி தெப்பம் நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம். மனம் கழிக்கும் உரைதான் இல்லையோ ஆனந்தத்தின் நிலையை விளக்க, மிகைதான் அழகோ வார்த்தை இல்லை பதமாய் இசைக்க. ஆடி வரும் தெப்பம் அசைந்து வரும் தெப்பம் ஞானம் தரும் தெப்பம் நித்யானந்தன் வரும் தெப்பம்.
तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महासेनाय धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात्. ॐ तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महासेनाय धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात्. ॐ तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महासेनाय धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात्. श्रीवल्ली देवसेना समेत श्री सुब्रह्मण्य स्वामिने नमो नमः. कर्पूर नीराजनं सन्दर्शयामि रक्षान् धारयामि. शोणाद्रीशावताराय ज्योतिस्तम्भस्वरूपिणे श्रीकैलासप्रधानाय नित्यानन्दाय मङ्गलम्. तत्त्वज्ञानप्रदाताय नित्यानन्देश्वररूपिणे श्रीकैलासप्रधानाय नित्यानन्दाय मङ्गलम्. मूलप्रकृतिरूपाय परमशिवशक्तिस्वरूपिणे श्रीकैलासप्रधानाय नित्यानन्दाय मङ्गलम्. दण्डत्रिशूलहस्ताय कालकालस्वरूपिणे श्रीकैलासप्रधानाय नित्यानन्दाय मङ्गलम्. आदिपूज्याय देवाय सकृत्पूर्णस्वरूपिणे श्रीकैलासप्रधानाय नित्यानन्दाय मङ्गलम्. सर्वाभयविनाशकाय शत्रुसंहाररूपिणे श्रीकैलासप्रधानाय नित्यानन्दाय मङ्गलम्. योगपट्टाभिषिक्ताय राजसन्न्यासधारिणे श्रीकैलासप्रधानाय नित्यानन्दाय मङ्गलम्. सार्वभौमैकमत्याय राजराजार्चिताय च श्रीकैलासप्रधानाय नित्यानन्दाय मङ्गलम्. मङ्गलं गुरुदेवाय मोक्षमूलाय मङ्गलम् परमावताराय नित्यानन्दाय गुरवे मङ्गलम् त्वं स्मृतमहं धन्य मम प्राणमहेश्वर गंगाधर नामेति स्तोत्रस्थानं ददाम्यहम्.
Thank you for joining us for the third day Uttaranga celebrations of Nithyanandotsavam. The celebrations will continue tomorrow when we will be celebrating the Chandikeshwara Utsavam. We invite you again for tomorrow's fourth day of the Uttaranga celebrations of Nithyanandotsavam. Thank you. Nithyanandam.
And response. Let you all open all your three eyes.
Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda 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 Paramashivoham. Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda. Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham.